Sunday morning on the Costa del Sol, and among the holidaymakers, 3 Irish terrorists were planning a bloodbath. A white car headed down the coast road, driven by an IRA bomber. The destination was Gibraltar, still Britain's vital military outpost at the entrance to the Mediterranean. The IRA have admitted that their plan involved explosives, and all evidence suggests that the target was a ceremony that is a symbol of British tradition on the Rock and a major tourist attraction. Every Tuesday morning, in normal times, soldiers and a military band parade in front of the Governor-General's residence. The ceremony ends round the corner in a side street 100 yards away, and it was here, at this moment, that the IRA apparently planned to set off a massive car bomb. Instead, 3 bombers were shot down after carrying out the first stage of their plan, driving in an empty car to secure a parking space as close as possible to their intended victims. In the same street where 140 pounds of high explosive would have detonated, I spoke to a former explosives expert with the British Army. Lieutenant Colonel George Stiles was for 3 years commander of bomb disposal in Ulster. He says the bomb would have annihilated soldiers and spectators alike.
Well, we're talking about it in seconds, but in milliseconds, the car would disintegrate. The shrapnel could go nowhere. It would ricochet off the walls of the building opposite and the wall behind. But above all that, you've got a tremendous concentration of blast because of the buildings so close together and the smallness of the area and so forth. And in the middle of all that, you've got people.
And what would have been the effect on these people, the band, principally, of the Royal Anglian Regiment?
Well, they wouldn't survive. People are fragmentable. They can be torn apart, and they are torn apart by the effects of concentrated blast. And I think anybody in this area would not survive.
After Enniskillen, the Provisional's political leadership expressed regret. But in fact, the IRA was already planning the Gibraltar outrage. She had recently been released after serving more than 10 years in prison for planting bombs in a Belfast hotel, an act she committed at the age of 19. In the same tape, she said she was lucky the police didn't shoot her when they found her outside the hotel.
I don't know, Maddie didn't take prisoners. You know, I was just lucky. I was lucky.
In prison, Farrell led the women's dirty protest, smearing excrement on the walls of their cells. After her release, she re-entered the IRA's military structure in a special unit attached to the General Headquarters staff. In the same team were Sean Savage, a committed terrorist known for his bomb-making skills, and Danny McCann, known to British intelligence as one of the IRA's most dangerous killers, who chose to shoot his victims at point-blank range. Last year, McCann was photographed with a cross that he claimed British soldiers had delivered to his door in Belfast. These were the 3 terrorists who came back dead from Gibraltar. It's now clear that their unit's mission was to strike a major blow to revive IRA morale. It was on November the 5th last year, 4 months before the shooting, that the IRA operation in southern Spain got underway, arriving at Malaga Airport a member of their special headquarters unit. The terrorist who mingled with the other passengers was Daniel McCann, the gunman from Belfast, carrying a false Irish passport in the name of Riley. As he went through passport control, he appeared to slip through routinely, but in reality, Spanish security police were already watching for him. It turned out that McCann's destination was Torremolinos. In fact, the first tip-off that helped to locate the Irish terrorists here on the Costa del Sol came from London. I'm told that the Spanish police had received a message from the British authorities warning them that an IRA group could be trying to operate on Spanish soil. Details of thousands of tourists were sifted by police computers, which checked hotel registration cards against lists of known false documents and names. By mid-November, they had pinpointed 3 terrorists: Daniel McCann, Sean Savage, and another woman terrorist whom police in both Britain and Spain still refuse to name. The 4th member of the IRA unit, she travelled under the false name of Mary Parkin. Sunday morning, March 6th, a car hire firm in Marbella, just 5 hours before the shootings. Mairead Farrell walked in and gave a cash deposit to hire a car in the false name of Catherine Smith. A few minutes later, she drove the white Ford Fiesta into an underground car park in the center of Marbella. She drove it down to the lower level, which is deserted on a Sunday morning. Police are working on the theory that the red car containing the explosives was already parked here, and that Mairead Farrell now transferred them to the white car, which had been hired with a fresh passport in a new name. £140 of explosives were found in the white Ford Fiesta in the car park 2 days after the shootings. I'm told that until then, neither the Spanish nor British police had any idea they were here. On the final Sunday of the operation, it was this vital question of where the explosives were hidden that came to obsess security officials in both Spain and Gibraltar. The IRA team then set out for Gibraltar in 2 separate cars, both under surveillance. Tailing them, plainclothes officers of Spain's elite anti-terrorist squad. The first IRA car was a white Renault 5 driven by Sean Savage. Later, police reported the red Ford with Farrell and McCann. In the eyes of the Spanish police, their 2 cars met up, and then Savage drove off in the white Renault, leaving the red Ford and the other 2 terrorists behind in Spain. Just before 1 p.m, Savage drove into the border checkpoint, and the Spanish police allowed him to pass through. On the Gibraltar side, British security officials took over the surveillance, and they too allowed Savage's car to drive through unhindered. Just why British security men did not stop a car that only 2 hours later came under suspicion as a dangerous car bomb is one of the key questions in the Gibraltar affair. And the biggest question, as the car crossed the airfield towards the town of Gibraltar, is how much was known about what the white Renault actually contained. According to the Spanish security police, they thought it was possible that the car contained a bomb, but they were also working on the theory that the explosives had already been delivered to Gibraltar by sea and that the car was now going to pick them up. Instead, Savage drove on, apparently unaware that nearby British troops, including SAS men, were lying in wait. Under surveillance, he drove into the street where the Tuesday parade ends and parked his car beside the ancient city wall. Back at the border at around 2:30 that afternoon, the other 2 members of the IRA team crossed into Gibraltar on foot, and then at around 3:30 they all left the area on foot, leaving the parked white Renault behind them unattended. At around 3:30, the terrorists began to walk back towards the border. It's now believed that the next phase in their plan would have been to bring in the real car bomb. They would then have put it in their parking space in time for the parade on Tuesday. They left the old town and were more than a mile from the parked car when Farrell and McCann, 100 yards in front of Savage, reached a petrol station which was closed on Sunday. Then suddenly a burst of shots rang out, and in less than a minute all 3 terrorists were dead, shot by the SAS. We have interviewed 4 key witnesses to the shootings. Their accounts raise serious questions about what really happened that afternoon, for they say that the British soldiers opened fire without warning, and none of them saw the IRA bombers make any threatening movements. The first witness is a housewife, Josie Salicia, whose flat is on the 2nd floor opposite the petrol station.
Well, I saw these 2 couples, and I was staring at the man because he had spiky, blonde, short hair, you know. Then all of a sudden I took my sight off them and looked at the adventure playground. Suddenly I heard 2 shots. They were about 2 shots. So I was just looking from where that came from. And all of a sudden, I saw the woman and, you know, the couple on the floor.
They didn't do anything. They just jumped with the guns in their hands, and they just went and shot these people. That's all. They didn't say anything. They didn't scream. They didn't shout. They didn't do anything. These people were turning their heads back to see what was happening. And when they saw these men had the guns in their hand, they just put their hands up. It looked like the man was protecting the girl because he stood in front of her. But there was no chance. I mean, they went to the floor immediately. They dropped.
Outside the petrol station, I saw a man who I'm fairly sure was wearing a bright yellow short-sleeved shirt, standing with both hands outstretched, holding a gun like this, and firing very rapidly into another man with blonde hair, wearing a white shirt, who was falling backwards with his hands like this, and falling back almost in slow motion. He went right down, and the firing continued. He was still being shot at as he went down.
And the moment these shots were being fired into him, how close were the 2 men together?
About as far as I am from you. Say 4 feet.
Really close range?
Oh, yes. Yes, undoubtedly. I mean, close enough. Let's put it this way. I think with one step he could have actually touched the person he was shooting.
Looking from her window, Josie Silesia saw the terrorists on the ground and an SAS man still pointing his pistol at them. As you saw the 2 lying on the ground and another man standing above them, what happened?
I heard shots, about 4 or 5 shots.
More shots?
See?
What were they like?
Continuously.
Like an automatic fire, no? Automatic. Like that. Blah, 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 blah.
See? Like that. One after the other.